A warm welcome back, and thank you so much for staying tuned on Smart 24 TV. Today, of course, we are discussing the national budget. A few days from now, of course, the minister or anyone that the president will appoint will be able to read out this budget to us. But we already know some of the facts, and we want to know what is behind these figures and what they imply to you as a citizen of Uganda. Joining me to discuss this is Honorable Dennis and Mr. Julius Mukundane, and these both are very, very important people when it comes to a national budget. Now, Mr. Mukundane, when we went into the break, we were still talking about prioritization. Before we go into the implementation challenges and so on and public debt, what are the key things that we should look out for? Because you mentioned something that the PDM is not a bad program.
No.
And I kind of agree with you on that. But the way we've seen it in the first 1 year or the first phase is discouraging. What should be done this time round if we are to see the successful inclusion of people in the money economy, especially the substantially poor people?
I think one of the things that we need to do is to ensure that money reaches the targeted beneficiary. And I was telling my honorable MP here that the first thing he should fight for in Parliament is to ask government, provide me a list of people in Kitugu municipality who have received the PDM cash. That's where we should start from, because the guidelines are very clear that money will leave Ministry of Finance straight to the SACCO's account. Now, we are not interested in the SACCOs. We are interested that the SACCO has actually distributed money to its beneficiaries. And that's what members of Parliament must get interested in. Short of that, PDM is going to be a white elephant. Yes. Number two is fiscal discipline. We know Uganda and its people, that there are people who have decided that PDM is going to be money is going to be eaten. So you need to put stringent measures to ensure that if you touch it, you pay for it. And I'm glad that I see these chief administrative officers being paraded in the court to pay back our money. And that you are setting a precedent. You are showing that PDM cash is not going to be eaten. And once people begin to refund that money, it sends a message to all other accounting officers that actually we need to be very careful on how we are managing these resources. And that's not only for PDM, it's for all other programs. Call it Myoga, call it Uganda Women Entrepreneurs Program. We need, as members of Parliament, must make sure that the right beneficiary gets the amount. If you find Julius Mukunda as a beneficiary of PDM cash in Kitugum, already that sets is a signal that actually money for PDM is not reaching the right beneficiaries. So I really urge people beyond the members of Parliament as well as citizens that get interested on what government is bringing to your village. There is PDM, but also there is that school, there is that health center, there is that borehole, there is that community road, because government is putting in a lot of money to improve the conditions of these particular facilities. No, I can tell you that a member of Parliament's child, daughter, son will not go into that health facility at your level. It is you who is going to go there. So be interested. The minister is not going to go to that UPE school. No. It is you. And in fact, people have taken Honorable Betty Kamia out of context. You know, when she was saying, me, I cannot die in Morago, I will go and die abroad. I think the point she was delivering was, if you as an individual are not going to fight corruption in this country to improve service delivery, it is you who is going to suffer. Because some people are already out of it, that they have other alternatives. So we need all to be there and say, you promised a health center with the medicines. So where is the medicine? And he's not going to have time to do that. It is just you and me, ordinary citizens, to do that. So let us really be vigilant about that.
Honorable Dennis, your final remarks on the PDM before we go on.
Actually, I've been listening carefully to my brother, Julius.
Yes.
And I tend to agree with most of the issues he's saying. However, Anthony, I want to say that the NRM government is repeating the history of the Bourbon monarchy that learn nothing and forget nothing. The NRM government has failed to realize that most of their program that comes does not go straight. to deliver its intention. Why? Because of the implementation challenges. When you look at Ntandikwa, look at all these other past programs, including NUSAF. At least to some extent, NUSAF has done something. But most of these programs has collapsed terribly. I was giving an example the other time on NBS TV when I was there. I gave the example that it is unfortunate that in northern Uganda, the more projects we give to northern Uganda, the more poverty level increases. By the time we were not having all these other projects, we were a bit doing well. We have received a lot, but our poverty level is 68.7%. Poverty increases as the projects come. Now, who takes the money? The implementers. Implementers and those, the government officials, actually. They are the one who takes the money, just like my brother said. PDM is good by its coinage of the name, by the package it represents in terms of the 100 million per Paris. But PDM is a political promise that Museveni made mention during his campaign that he will implement it, he will bring it. However, he forgot that after campaign, there is need to actually put the project into a workable document. It is very unfortunate right now, Anthony, that we are implementing PDM, but the 7 pillars are not being followed. Where people are supposed to first to be trained, they have got money before receiving the training. Now, what are you giving the money for? And what are you training them for? So it is politically put. PDM is politically put, and that is why it is losing focus. And right now, the biggest challenge that we are going to have after this budget, next year, we shall have this problem I'm going to talk about. The women programs, UWEP, has been swept up. UWEP has been merged to PDM. Youth Livelihood Program has been merged to PDM. All these other projects that used to help. Emioga is there, the money is there. Who gets the money, you may not know. But when you move around in a better trading center, in a high trading center, you see Emioga circles are there. But you don't know who are they. You will not see them. So the biggest challenge we have on PDM is that the implementation is totally wrong. And yet, right now, we have collapsed most of the sectors that used to help the women, the UWEP. We removed the one that used to help the Youth Livelihood Program. It has been removed. All these kind of things. Now, when you go to Operation Wealth Creation, maybe you'll ask Julius to talk about it. It is a total poverty creation. It do nothing. And you wonder what is happening. When I heard about Operation Wealth Creation for the first time, I smiled and I thought, we are okay. Where is it? It is like a political token. And the same thing with PDM. It is moving toward the ideas of a political token. Be given to political, actually, affiliation. Why do you put NRM chairman to be among the people to implement the PDM? Automatically, we'll have to favor the NRM people. We were making a joke the other time that why can't they also put my FDC chairman there? And the UPC also bring the chairman. So all this kind of thing, if the government want projects to move on well, they should have actually the real intention clear. They should have the implementation ability known. They should do 70% on planning, then 30% can be on execution of the work. Otherwise, at the moment, PDM is dead on arrival.
Thank you, Honorable Dennis. Let's move on to implementation. One of the things that has been on the minds of Ugandans is our worrying debt. However, every time they come out of keeping the debt, we say it's still sustainable. And this is something they usually scale to the GDP, where they use a term called the debt to GDP ratio is still below 50%. Well, we've crossed that mark currently. Our debt is running at least about 86 trillion Ugandan shillings. And however, despite this report, we also have the report from UBOS saying that our economy has grown in the past year, 2022-2023, to a size of 184 trillion. And this, according to the minister, what absorbs, the debt, because now we have our debt rising, but still the economy is still, getting bigger in size. Mr. Mukundana, I want to get your thoughts on our public debt currently. At 86 trillion, we are standing at least 53% of the GDP. Are we still in the sustainable bracket?
I think let us not fear the 86 trillion, the debt stock, because nobody's going to tell us to pay it tomorrow. Me and the actually shall not be there. It should be our good grand children who will pay that. What we need to fear today are the practices around it, the way we are managing it. And you want to see a few indicators that say, am I getting better? Number one, you want to look at even the debt to GDP, I think is sort of an outlier because we are around, I think we're around 49%. Of course, others tell us 53%. But United States is above 100% tax debt to GDP. United States is above 100%.
They have to just increase their debt ceiling.
Germany, all these countries, they are above 100%.
Yeah.
So does that mean that as a nation we should be able to say, oh, I think for me there are certain things I want to look out for. Number one is how much of my revenue, local revenue, do I contribute to debt servicing? My benchmark is supposed to be 12.5%, but now we are at 24%. There I get worried. If I look at my debt obligations in the budget, and I look at the available money that I have, for example, out of the 52 trillion that we are talking about, 27, these guys didn't even touch it, 27 trillion, because those are debt obligations. I begin to get worried. I have a 52 trillion budget, but out of that, I only have 25 to allocate to myself. There, I begin to get worried.
Discretionary spending at least at 17 trillion.
Yes. So you begin to say, what is happening? So you begin to say, I think I need to get back to the drawing board and see how can I get better rigor. It means, therefore, that you have less money to deal with any shock that might come. And we know these shocks are there, that you do not have enough resources to deal with any shock that is likely to come. And for me, that's the perspective of how I want to look at debt. I want also to look at debt in terms of how am I absorbing it? The Auditor General is telling us that we have 15.5 trillion of undisbursed loans. And we are spending, I think you said 1.6. In my mind, I'm like, if I contract a loan today and I'm not able to utilize it 10 years later, and I keep on paying commitment fees on it, because commitment fees is the amount of money you pay on undisbursed loans. It means that I need really to come back to the drawing table, do an internal look of my capacity, whether I should be contracting more loans. Because the ones that are out there, I am unable to utilize them. So those are things you want to look at. And all those tend to take us into uncharted territories. But also is, if you begin to borrow money to meet your current expenses, debt is supposed to do for development work, a road to Kitugum, health centers, schools, but not to pay our honorable members their salaries and their allowances. You don't want to go there. So if you start doing that, because the Auditor General's report is telling us last financial year, we borrowed around 4.4 trillion to meet our current expense. Those are the signals you begin to say, okay, I think this debt, whether sustainable or not, I need to see how this debt can bring returns to me. And we have been trying to look at why is this happening. One of the things we have realized is that unpreparedness to implement projects. We sign contracts, but when we come to implement the project, then we are like, okay, the design does not work here. Some projects do not have visibility studies. You start a project, you have visibility studies, so it means you don't know its cost and benefit, how it's going to be done. So that's one thing. The other part also is, I think, the contracts that we sign. I was shocked to learn that when you sign a contract with the Chinese, any dispute out of that contract must be settled with China. all the disputes must be settled with China. You should use the national laws of China, not for Uganda. Now, what it means is my friend Dennis. If you are the attorney general, you must know Chinese. to go to China and defend Uganda. Less than that, you must hire a Chinese legal firm to help. Now, that becomes very complicated for you to engage in this particular area. So today morning, I was happy when there was this launch of integrated bank project. And the government was trying to say, okay, with all these problems, I think we should streamline the way projects start and the way projects end, so that people understand that you just think of a good idea and you think it is a government project, but it must go through a process so that it can be done.
Honorable Dennis, on the matters of debt, we are still borrowing to pay salaries, borrowing to actually cater for allowances and so on. Yet we have undisbursed loans to a tune of 17 trillion. The report further says that this is a reduction from 20 trillion in the previous fiscal year, as if that should make us comfortable. But 17 trillion is way too much to be undisbursed for a single year. What do you think is the problem?
Anthony, our debt ratio should be worrying all of us. I want to disagree with my brother Julius when he said that we should not worry because we are not paying it now. It is our children that will pay. It is dangerous. You know, when our debt ratio climbs too high, it affects even investors. The investors will not come to invest soberly in the country. And that definitely will scale down our GDP. Secondly, once our debt ratio is high, it becomes a risky venture for any donor, to any person who wants to give us more loan. First of all, they'll put the interest high because that is a risk venture. So any risky venture takes a high interest. And that is why right now we are ending up borrowing from a money lender in Kenya. Very disappointing. From a money lender. Now, our GDP of Uganda right now stands at 52 billion US dollars. Kenya's GDP stands at 110 billion US dollars. More than double Uganda. Tanzania, 67.8 something percentage. Our level of debt, it is worrying because we do not borrow money to use into production line that we are confident that we are really going to reap out of what we are borrowing. We borrow money to pay a salary. We borrow money for corruption. We borrow money that we do not even use. At the moment in the budget, we have about 256 trillion recurring. 256. Too huge to be realistic. Billion, actually. Billion. It's a lot of money.
The entities that are supposed to utilize these funds usually delay on projects. Let's take a look at, for example, by the time that Katonga Bridge actually fell through, it was already something that had been raised. And there was some money, I think, which was supposed to be appropriated to that. But until the bridge actually broke down, that's when we remembered now to rush. So as members of parliament, what are you doing to see that projects, government projects, are implemented way before disaster?
That is why we initially were talking about that. That we do not follow the processes of budgeting. Preparation, authorization, execution, accountability. At the time when we are supposed to account, we are executing the budget. That's a challenge. So you will not have time to even ask for accountability of what we have appropriated. That's a big challenge in this country. And definitely our accounting officers also play a very, very bad role in ensuring that when money is asked for a particular project, they tend to delay it. The money comes late. And after that, the money is not utilized and is swept back into the central account. At times, it is never reverted. And if it is not reverted, where does it go? It's a big question you've been asking there. So generally, the issues of debt in this country must worry all of us as citizens. If we don't control it, we will reach the red light. Like my brother said about the Chinese, let me first mention only that. The Chinese have started putting a very serious stringing, not only them, not only Chinese, but many other people who lend us money. To an extent that when they lend you money, they give it with an attachment that their people are supposed to come and take the contract and do it. So if they give you 100%, definitely 30% will go back. The work execution they're going to do. They repatriate the money. More than you get it. So you are paying the interest, you are paying the loan they're giving you, and yet they're taking away most of the money. And when my brother Julius talked about USA, their debt is very high, almost even 100%, even Japan. I agree with you. They are right to have that. Why? They have things which they are producing that brings money to the economy. Look at the GDP, it's too high. They borrow money into projects. Like any other ordinary business person, if you don't borrow money to finance a particular project that can develop your company, you may not develop. So these countries borrow money and they put in project, for example, Toyota, Land Rover. These are countries that borrow money, put into that, and here we are driving Toyota. All the money goes back to them. They pay back their loan. They have the mechanism of paying back their loan. Not like us. I'm happy that Kira Motors Corporation, Kira Motors, is now producing buses. I've been to China. I've seen most of these other, how they do their things, assembling points. I pray that Kira Motors is actually empowered so that maybe we begin channeling money there, and most of these vehicles we put like a law that Ugandans should begin maybe buying first-hand car, but at affordable prices, maybe on loan basis, so that we empower Kira Motors to begin bringing up vehicles. And that will help to boost the economy. Otherwise, at the moment, it is terrible. And when you ask our economies here, they will tell you that the per capita is good. The GDP per capita is good. How many is it? For Uganda, the per capita is $2,200. Now, when you look at that, you might be thinking that an ordinary person from my village is having that 9 million Uganda shillings. It is not true. Per capita, they had what Sudiri is having with his family, what Museveni is having with his family. Then they divide them on us. And they say, now that is what you have.
A very short break, and we return very briefly. One of the things that we've noticed is that URA has always fallen back on its target. And one of the things that they have done is to do tax reforms. We've seen so many tax reforms, new tax proposals, and widening the tax base. However, all these efforts, still URA has not been able to meet its target, not only in this fiscal year, but also in the previous fiscal years. This time round, they are even raising the stake. How are we going to get this money off the URA back? My name is Anthony. This is The Point. We are talking the national budget, and we take a short break. We return shortly. Stay with us.